Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me Guion Hughes. How you doing, Guion?
Doing great.
It's good to have you back on. And today we're going to be talking about incantation and speaking in tongues. And this is something that Guion and I both have a background in because we both come from a Pentecostal background. And yeah, go ahead and explain, Guion.
Yeah, well, I think, speaking in tongues, they usually in Christian circles, they call it the gift of speaking in tongues. Sometimes, a lot of times, there's an interpreter or the pastor can interpret stuff like that. It also has kind of a dark, it's a dark connotation because the same verses that talk about speaking in strange tongues that nobody understands also talk about handling poisonous snakes and drinking poisons and not being affected. Which I don't know if you ever went into that in your places.
No, no.
The churches I went to, we they strayed away from that a little bit. But
Yeah, we didn't do that.
yeah, but you've seen it before.
I've seen it. Yeah,
dancing with snakes and letting them bite them, and some people are drinking arsenic and then and to bring on. I mean, some of that stuff you got to think. Probably my people probably think people are just on drugs from the venom of the animals and the drinking of the arsenic, so they're just speaking like that, but I've never I shied away from that. I feel that speaking in tongues, what they call speaking, the gift of speaking in tongues, is like a real thing. In Christianity, the medical term is glossolalia, which it's a real thing. It's a real thing. You can tell when someone's just like babbling, just making up words, or just trying to do this,
yeah,
as opposed to like it actually like taking the form of a language. We're just humans, like say me and you were English speakers naturally, usually,
yeah.
Well, when we're speaking glossolalia, if a scientist hooked it up, they'll get that we're using not just the same sounds, but also like the same grammar in a strange way. We're like speaking in a different mode, but it's still kind of like English.
Yeah.
And then you see babies. That's another interesting thing. I've always been interested in why is it taboo for babies are discouraged, or younger kids are discouraged from like what they call babbling, at a young age, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're a baby, don't babble, don't babble, don't babble, which is like, I mean, is that the worst thing, really? I mean, I always thought, why not? Maybe that brings up some
Well,
creativity.
not really, but let me ask you this question. Okay, so in Pentecostal churches, you have people speaking in tongues, and then a lot of times there's an interpreter. Now, would you say that the interpreter is legit, or is there not a spiritual connection between the interpreter and what is being said?
I think it depends, of course. I mean, I think I've seen where it seems like the way that that there's some kind of psychic connection. There is
Yeah.
some kind of and the way the interpreter usually interprets, it's not just like, oh, John said to go get a letter over here at the post. Usually, the interpretation is in a prophecy type of form that also needs to be kind of like discerned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's yeah. So there's the psychic connection with that. I always love to look at the I guess I would call the occult interpretation of the Bible.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned in your video that it is actually from the subconscious, the speaking in tongues.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really and really, if you think of it, it's really the four powers of the Sphinx almost. Like the way I look at it is and I'll go into this too. It's actually in Genesis in the Bible. I mean, it's done in a weird, in a
Yeah.
kind of a occultic way. But I'll do some readings from there. It's like first is like thought, and then the thought is to know. Yeah, you're familiar with the powers of the Sphinx, or the
Yeah.
witch's pyramid, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like to know, to dare, to be silent, to will. Those are like
Right.
the four things. So to know is you're just thinking about what you want. To dare is either to speak or to do some kind of like ritual, movement, dance, whatever. It's action. To be silent obviously is like to not do certain things to sabotage your thing. And then I consider will our results. Like this is the results we get. We may get the results we wanted, or we don't, or the results we don't want, and then we feed back right back into like, well, is our knowledge wrong? Did we speak the wrong words? Did we not? Were we too silent on other things? So
would you say that? I'm sorry. Would you say that speaking in tongues is actually a spell being done?
I think definitely. I mean, I think even more powerful than a spell. It's spells usually take time, at least in Wicca and stuff like that. A lot of times, you see people they'll be doing string, or they'll be making a little puppet doll, or I mean, there's a lot of spells take some time. A lot of times, at least in the traditions of witchcraft and that I have. But when someone does a thing, an incantation like that, or speaking in tongues, it automatically, it's almost like a punch. It punches through the aura, and unless the person has shielding, and depends on the person, of course, right? The average mundane, first of all, it scares them, it befuddles them, it confuses them, and spiritually, it punches a hole in their aura, and you could just send some demons, or I don't, you would call them spirits, demons, bad elements into them. That's the way that the spell works. But I mean, this could take less than 2 minutes, 1 minute. Whereas a spell, sometimes spells work on for months.
Well, explain a little bit about, you had mentioned about punching a hole in your aura and then allowing people to get possessed. Can you explain a little more about that through the speaking in tongues?
Yeah. So the way it is it's following the same process of to know. So though I've already got spirits, in my head, in my thoughts, and if somebody does intimidate, if the spirits will tell me that person's okay, that person wants to teach you something, that person wants to use you, look out, that person's intimidating, he's going to try, he or she is going to try to do some bad stuff to you, So the spirits, usually that's discernment, usually that's that. And that's another thing in Christianity, that the power of discernment, they call it, right? Discernment of spirits, because, these speaking in tongues, it's not just a Christian, it's people use this also in dark arts, like Enochian. A lot of people don't know that, and I'll give a shout out because of Stanton's passing just now. That Enochian is in the Satanic Bible. There's a whole section which Enochian I would consider, I would consider Enochian. There's the Enochian language. I would consider Enochian a form of kind of like glossolalia. And the people that invented Enochian, they tried to do this and that and the other, but they actually were, 15. The 1500s. I mean, we don't have any recordings. Who knows what they said, right? I mean, we have. I don't know if you ever heard the ones with that Aleister Crowley. His recordings. He had some of those wax, these wax things from the 20s. That, and it's really horrible sound. And who knows? That was Golden Dawn. Who by that time, who knows if that was what John Dee and all the older people were doing, but. To give an example, whenever we're ready, I have to just give a disclaimer. And I know this is, people can just say, if they want to just banish it by saying it's just not true or whatever. If I do, I want to talk a little bit in the Bible about how, this is like my old family Bible here. It's even the covers even come off. And talk about, how I interpreted this as a young teen, because a lot of times I only had the Bible. And I had to sneak and get the Necronomicon or the Satanic Bible. That was like shoved under my bed like a Penthouse magazine or something.
Right.
Right. I mean, you come from that kind of background, but if you read the Bible,
I can relate.
it explains this to me, at least it does, at least all you need really is, your thoughts and your incantation. And, it's showing you basically to be a god. I mean, that's what a lot of people miss about Christianity. They just think of it like, oh, you're telling me you're trying to control my sexuality. You're trying to tell me not to have sex before marriage. And you're trying to tell me that you got all these rules and regulations and things, judgments and stuff, right? But really, the core of Christianity is saying that, this is a man. Call him what you want. His name, original name was Yeshua. People have changed it to Jesus and all this stuff. But the key point is he's a man. He was a God who became a man. So the key point is, that we're all like kind of gods in training, or as my teacher, Lon Milo Duquette, used to say, God's out of whack.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well,
so that's the key. The key message is for me that I came from that. So whenever I just want to give a disclaimer. If I do some of this glossolalia, it can affect certain people, and I usually do kind of a banishing or blessing over it to say, so nobody gets hit with anything they're not expecting. Because even if somebody thinks this is a bunch of BS, it can still affect them. I've seen it, But I'd like to read from the Bible, unless there was any other.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, yeah, this is my old family Bible.
But I'll get to it after you go through that.
Yeah, this is my old family Bible. I don't even know how old it is, but just the first two chapters, Genesis. And yeah. I don't know if you can see it on here. It's got these beautiful pictures and everything.
Yeah, I can see it.
Adam and Eve, and the with all the wild animals around them and everything. Mm-hmm. So let me see if I could. So just the first two chapters is what taught me everything about, I guess, the first two powers of the Sphinx. Yeah. And really, if you think about it, it's really all four powers of the Sphinx, and I'll explain why. I'll explain how that works. So, I'll just start reading here. Chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So no light, only water, only void. No forms. It's just it's a world without sight. It would be almost like thought, like whatever. Right. You'd have to just imagine what it would be like, really. There's no light. So that's the thought part. I think this is what they're describing here. Is these are the thoughts of the Creator God, whatever you want to call him. Yod He Vav He, El Shaddai. I mean, I used to know all the 72 names, but I'm not going to go through them now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Too much trouble to remember all that.
So we don't have enough time for that. But yeah, Elohim, there's all kinds of them, right? So that's the thoughts of the Creator God. The second part is the incantation part for me, creation of light. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, and that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and morning were first born. So, see, it's interesting to say, he spoke light into the being. He spoke light. He didn't start a fire. Didn't dance light into being. He spoke. He spoke light into being.
Words are very powerful.
Yeah, words are powerful. And then plus, if you think about it, I mean, say if you have a disabled person who can't see, you would try to speak to them most likely and say, this is sharp. Look out! This is what we call like a cutting knife, and or this and that, or these are called glasses. Feel them, whatever. I mean, So you would speak to try to give them a verbal thing like that. So that's those are the two, so obviously that's the thoughts, which meditations and different things would actually like, project, have the thoughts ready. Then once you do speak, it's important. You could, I mean, like it's saying, it's so important. You can speak light. He spoke the sun into being,
Yeah.
which is, pretty amazing, I think,
Right. Well,
that's the where I first started seeing that.
I was gonna say, speak a little bit on the word lamaka when you were using that. Can you give me an example?
See, a lot of these words, they come to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, they come to me and then the spirits tell me, this is a good banishing.
Right.
I don't know if they tell me directly, but they're just like, this is a good banish. And, it's like a
It
telepathic.
arises from your subconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing is I usually use that like when a bad thought's coming, like say, and we all, I don't know if you, I'm sure all humans have this, right? Like say we had an embarrassing moment. I mean, last week, in third grade, whenever, right? We had an embarrassing moment, an uncomfortable moment, or we're worried about a bill, any kind of negative thought. So as soon as it's coming in, it's trying to creep in your mind, it's really going to affect it. It's say la maca, la maca. It's like you just kind of like rise above it. You vanish it and make it rise above. Lamakala. Just that's just the interpretation they gave to me. Lamakala is your soul rises above this. Your soul rises above this. So it basically just gets rid of those things, that feeling of embarrassment, and that's just like, that's just like that. A lot of times I'll do this stuff. This is a pro tip. I'll be doing this around people, or even when partying or whatever. It'll just come out like, and people will be like, well, what's that, and I'll just say, I'm Armenian, or I'm Russian. I don't know, right?
Hey man, what strain is that?
Or I'm French. I really am French. It's not French words, but how do they know? I mean, once in a while I'll get somebody and then I'll have to explain it. But mostly when you just tell people, whatever you look like, I'm French, I'm that, I'm this or that. I'd like to give an example. I mean, I think we covered enough of how it, the first two, the very first, the Bible kind of covers basically how to do magic.
Right.
I'd like to do that one you were talking about with the magical attack, and that, like I said, I'll do a disclaimer over it so nobody actually does get, it takes I got to build up to it a little bit.
That's fine.
So and the thing too is it's in the imagination. I've got to picture some kind of being that is not friendly, that is harmful, which obviously here in my domicile, in my temple, there's nobody here. My chihuahua's doing great, everything. So like no one's here, but I'm imagining it, and it's almost like acting. You got to imagine there's like in the green screen, you got to imagine there's something negative there. So let me see if I can build up to this. So and this is also good. I think, this scares people away, pushes people back. If anything, they think, for lack of a better word, you're crazy, and you're like, whoa, like, which is better than whatever they're going to do.
It can save you from dangerous situations.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could. I want to do a class on all this. I mean, I have talked to people, and I don't want to say that this is the only thing. I've talked to women who, creepy guys have been following them, and I've taught them this kind of technique of doing this, and, in a stern way. And the guy's like, well, he'll just find somebody else who's not so witchy or whatever, right? Yeah. Which I think is great. I think anything that prevents sexual assault or any kind of crime or robbery, I think is great. So anyway, let me see if I can get ready here for this. I got to get myself psyched up a little.
Okay.
So say if I picture, and it could be anything, we're talking about Christianity. So a goetic demon is definitely like that. So I'm picturing, something that's, you know, trying to intimidate me, trying to invade my space, trying to get something from me that I don't want. Spirits will tell me what to say. I don't just make up the words.
Yeah.
So I mean, I got to send it to the spirits and say,
Okay, that's
this
fine.
guy, this being, this entity is, you know, you're telling me I'm getting the sense, you know, this is not a harmful, this is not a good thing. So it would go a little bit something like this. If you're punching through, you visualize your words as just, you know, you could do a fist or just a ball or anything just to go through whatever aura they have, right? The actual glossolalia differs obviously, but let me see if I can come up with some here. So I see the spirit, I see the entity, or even a human being, you know, that has the negative things. The way it would go, I'd ask my spirits would let it flow through. It would be like, la makala, look slow markala, slow markala, slow kolomandekala, slow marakia, slow marakula, shalamalaka, roka, lokra, loki, sharamaraka, raka, molaka, loka, loka. So that's like a trance type thing. And let me do before anybody gets anything bad. Samala, bukula shamala, bukumala, mukamala, shamala, bukumala ma. These are friendly people, have no negative. Friendly people, this was a test. Friendly people, this was a test. Magbula, kalamala, kushamala, wulamala, kulama.
Wow.
So
it makes me feel like I'm in church again.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah.
And in the context of church, even it's kind of a little eerie, but in the context of say a dance club, I mean, you know,
that's a lot different setting. You know,
some frat boy that's giving you a hard time, you know, they usually just like be like, this guy's crazy, or they'll just go find somebody else to bother, you know, really.
See, being in a Pentecostal church, when a lot of outsiders would come and they would see speaking in tongues for the first time, a lot of times they didn't know how to react to it. It kind of intimidate them and they wouldn't come back. But yeah, it is misunderstood. Now, I want to speak on something that you had mentioned. You said to create your own reality. Okay, if your thoughts are right, if your meditations are right, if your incantations are right, you can create your own reality. Go ahead and break that down.
Yeah, well, that goes back to the powers of the Sphinx, I believe, right? So you know, it's to know, to dare, to be silent, to will. Those are the four powers of the Sphinx. It's also been adopted and called the witch's pyramid, right?
Yeah.
And there's a fifth element that people use. I like to call it awareness. Other people call it, I mean, Aleister Crowley called it just to go, just meaning to act, you know?
Right.
That's, you know, something like that. Because, you know, he interpreted it from other things. So Aleister Crowley went into this. Amber Kay wrote a really good book about it, the witch's pyramid and everything that I had. So the idea is like, you know, whatever you're thinking, if you're thinking and you speak things right, you know, the speech is to dare and to be silent, because you know, the things in between it are silence, right? To dare is to even make a sound at all, you know, and your thoughts are just to know, you know, it's all in if you've got your thoughts right, and you know, when you speak, it's speech and silence. You know, they even have that thing in Tolima. They call it speech in the silence, right? So you're already doing silence and speech. Your will is actually the results you get, good or bad, right? Say like, I wanted to manifest, I don't know, I wanted to manifest Cthulhu here, right? And instead of getting Cthulhu, you know, I just got you know, I got this dragon here. So I'm like, okay, well, I got some kind of magical result a little bit. I'm on the right track a little, but I didn't get the results I wanted. So back to the drawing board, so to say, right? Maybe my thoughts, what was wrong? My thoughts, my this, or some people might say, well, you know, I marketplace, you know, I got something like that manifested in my life. Somebody dropped it in front of my house, whatever. I think that's the process of magic, if that makes sense to you, you know. And I'm not sure, you know, I think I might have to do like a whole thing on that. But those powers, you know, when you think, when your thoughts are right, when your speech is, your incantation is right, because the incantation is to dare and to that and to that, and then all you got to do is look at your results and then feed them back and see what you did wrong.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I wanted to go ahead and cover. Everybody who's watching, go ahead and check out Guion's YouTube channel, Guillotine Productions. It's a lot of good stuff on there. Check out his TikTok, Guillotine Productions, Instagram, all the links below this video. Guion, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and everybody who's watching, go ahead and like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.